Hi everybody, Alex Defoe here from Expert Forex. Welcome to today's webinar on the importance of having good test data to test and calibrate and optimize EAs. I wonder if somebody could just confirm that they can hear me quite well. Okay, right, I've got some responses coming through already. Right, and a lot of recognizable names. Since the webinars have started, I can see that a lot of people have attended most of the webinars. Thank you for your support and attending the webinars. That's what it makes it all worthwhile. And I'm looking forward to a lot of questions and comments today. It's quite a important subject, this, and I can tell from the attendance levels, it's not the kind of subject people like talking about. They like buying an EA, plugging it in and trading, but life isn't that simple. It's a little bit more, if you really want to get the best out of your EAs, you should learn to test them, certainly test them, optimize them, and learn to use them to their best advantage, and for that you need really quality data. So let's start looking at what quality data means. And I think the first thing that I need to make you aware of where all this data is kept and stored within your MT4 platform. So if we go to the I need to actually, the tools menu. In the tools menu, you will find a history center. Now that history center, and let's open it up, will contain all the data. So Telenex has got micro Forex, digit currencies, and micro Forex 2. They'll have different brokers will have different setups, but they contain the history of every currency that is presented for you to be able to trade, and some have got more history than others. Let's just go and look at the pound, open that up, and you can see they've got history for the 1 minute, 5 minute, all the time frames that you would trade. So this is where your trading history is stored. Now it's very important also to understand that this is not your testing history, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail as we go on. But this is where your trading history is stored. Now you can do a lot of testing using the broker's data, and this is essentially the broker's data. And what you then do, and just watch this very carefully, is you can, if you're interested in the pound, and I'll just open the 1 minute there, you can download additional data here by clicking on download. Let's do that. It will then tell you you're going to download data from MetaQuotes. So the supplier of MetaTrader supplies this data. It isn't Telenex that's supplying this data, it's MetaTrader. So you need to be aware of that. So this is very general data, and they will update. If you press OK, they will download a lot of additional, and I'll press OK. Yeah, this is a fairly fresh demo account that I'm working with, and you can see here new data is being loaded for the pound, and updating this from MetaTrader. So it's adding a whole lot of new data, but it still doesn't go back very far, because the minute, for instance, most demo accounts come with about 2 weeks of minute data. If you do this, you might extend it to about a month or so, and I'll show you how you can determine how much data you've got. But this is now downloading and updating the data from MetaQuotes. So and also I must stress, this is your trading data. It's when you open a screen, how far can you scroll back on that particular screen? At this stage, we're not talking about test data. I'll show you how test data works. So has anybody made use of this directory, for instance? Has anybody updated their data using this methodology? Can I just see by comments that you... Okay, so there's quite a few people that have used this data. There's a few that haven't. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so if you are just testing your EA, I would say this is the way to go, is maximize the amount of what I would say free data that you can get from MetaTrader by downloading all the data. Now, I'm sorry I started this because it looks like it's going to go forever. In fact, I'll just stop it, but you get the idea. You come here and you identify currencies you want to download, and then you download them, and a MetaTrader will download considerable data for you. And in fact, we're going to have a look at the pound and see how much data there is. Now, a very good comment that has just come through. I've heard that history data has a lot of gaps, and that is 100% true. Broker data or MetaTrader data is of poor quality. It really is of poor quality. It has lots of gaps in it, and that makes it most probably less reliable than quality data. And so again, this data is free. You can maximize the amount of data you can get, but you find that it's not really enough to do detailed testing, and it does have gaps, and it has lower quality than normal. So I'm going to just stop this for now, but that gives you an idea of where you can get a lot of free data. Now I'm just going to close this. The other method that you can use is you can actually open a chart like I've got here. This is the New Zealand dollar, but I don't know how I got here, but this is the New Zealand dollar, and if you press, and this is the 1 minute of the dollar, and if you press home, it will take you to the last history that it has. So this is the 7th of April. So this chart actually has quite a lot of 1 minute. This is 1 minute data, right down to the 7th of April. So that's how you find out how much. And now let's just open the pound 4-hour chart. Here's the pound 4-hour chart. I'm going to press home, and it goes right back to December 2009. But as I say, beware, there are a lot of gaps in this kind of market, in this kind of data. The other way that that you can force download is you go to the chart, press on page up, and it will download as much data as it possibly can. It will continue loading more data and more data, and until it reaches the maximum data that is available. So that is how you can populate your chart. And I must stress, this is chart data. This is not testing data I'm talking about yet. This is chart data. You can populate your chart data quite nicely. Now, the next major point that really comes out of this is that you need to understand very clearly, and a lot of people don't realize this. Your chart data, that history center, is for your charts, not for the tester. I've got the tester open here. The tester does not use that data. Now, I don't know if you're aware of that. It just if you didn't realize that the tester does not use your chart history, please just say that you weren't aware of it. This is nice that, okay, there are some people that did not know that. All right, now, this is very important because what happens, and I'll show you how it works. We go to File, we go to Data folder. This is where all your data gets kept. And there, so now we're in the data folder of this MT4 platform. Now you can see there's the history file, the history center. So I open the history and I will then, now where is it? I think it's in downloads. Oh, that's what we've just downloaded. We've literally, there you can see today, that's what's been downloaded today. So let's just go back. I must probably in the wrong. Maybe defaults. No. Where are all these symbol sets? No. Funny, I can't find it now. Right, let's see. Maybe it's, oh, there we are. Okay, so here are all the history files that get downloaded that drive the trading charts. I must stress it's trading charts. And let's look at the first one. That's the ARCAD. It's the 15-minute time frame, and it has an extension of HST, history. So that's the history chart of the, and that is when you load your Aussie CAD chart up, this history will be loaded into that chart. Okay, now what happens when we test? So let's just go back one. We go back now. So that came out of that folder there. When we test, and here's the testing information, it has a different history section, totally different. So there's the history section of this particular platform that I'm using. Now you'll notice there be a few currencies. It's because I haven't done much testing. So what happens when you test? Well, and you'll also see that this file, so that's the Euro-Yen 60-minute file, has a different extension. It's an FXT extension. It's a different kind of file. So where do these files come from? If they're not the history files, where do these files come from? And I'll explain that to you in a little bit more detail as we go along. But so be aware that the test history you're using doesn't just come from the history files. It actually are use different files, and these files are created as you're testing. So let's just close this and give you an idea. Now, if you remember in that history file, let's use a currency, and I'll just open it again, that we haven't used before. Let's just open file, tester, history. All right, so the pound, for instance, I'm picking on the pound a bit today, but the pound has never been tested on the strategy tester before, and I can tell that because there's no file for it to be tested. So let's go and test the, and I've just got a random EA on here. So let's go and select the pound, and we're going to now test it. All right, so I'll explain the difference between the two testing methods because that also impacts data quality quite a lot. But I'm just going to run this on the fast method, which is the open price method. And I'm going to run it for a short period because we don't want to keep the webinar up too long. Just run it from August to December, and I'm going to run this on the 1 hour, and I'm going to start it. Now, can you see it goes into a process of generating information, tick data in fact, it also then regenerating an history file. So it goes through a process of going to the history files, and it then creates a test file. Now, it hasn't started testing yet because it's still doing all that stuff. And when it's finished creating that history file, then only will it start testing. So the tester has to create its own files to do testing. A lot of people don't realize that, and this creates all kinds of complications. Sometimes when you are testing, sometimes the files that it's that you're using, it double reads them, and all kinds of problems that come on. I'll come to birth data later on. Right, please, I'm not using tick data. You can see there's some tick data stuff on here. I'm using I'm using the broker data. Okay, so I wanted you to focus on what's going on right now. Don't focus on anything else into the future. So here we are. So it's now run. You can see the quality is absolutely poor. It has a very poor quality. Results don't really matter because I'm just using a random. This EA shouldn't be run on a 1 hour. So did you see it went through a process of creating the data file, and then it ran it. Now from now on, if we run it for this period, there won't be a problem. It doesn't need to recreate. But let's go back to this data folder. Okay, so we're going to go to tester. We're going to history, and can you see now there wasn't a pound file before? Now there is a pound file for the 60 minutes, for the 1 hour file, and there it is. So the tester goes and takes the data from the charts, brings it into the tester, and creates its own file, which it then uses for testing. Very important that you understand this process, because when we send you a file for calibration, I'm sorry, I must forget about that. That's a different process. But essentially, you need to understand how the MT4 platform uses data before we even start looking at other. Now, the data that it's using there, and very important, you can't test on data that you don't have. So let's just close this, close it, and we say, all right, we're going to run this test, and at the moment we're running it from August. Now, generally the 1 hour data is quite good. So what we've got to do is we've got to go back and go to the history center, to the not that one. We've got to actually go to the charts, the 1 hour chart. I'll just might clean it up a bit because I don't like busy charts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that trick that I showed you earlier. I'm going to go home. So what this is saying is that we have data until February 2016. So if we wanted to test a system, we could test it back to 2016 on the 1 hour chart. So it's got 1 hour data that goes back to February 2016. So whenever you're doing testing, always first go to the chart, see how much data there is 2016, and then you know how much testing you can do. All right, just going through the questions. Thanks for the questions and comments that you're sending through. It's very helpful for me to sort of guide my presentation. Using tick data. All right, so far we have just used the normal MT4 data and done a test on it and got pretty terrible results. And that's how this particular one works. Now, let me just see if there's anything else that needs to come through here. All right, so let's just change this to 1 minute and see how much 1 minute data we have for the. This is now the pound, and we press home, and it says April. That's very far back, but let's just see if it will. All right, so I'm going to run a test from May. It says there is May, 1st of May. I don't believe it, but let's see if that's true. Right, so I'm going to run a test using the 1 minute all the way back to May. Now, keep your eye over here. Okay. All right, so look at that. That's gone positive. That's quite a nice thing. If you have problems with your runs, the first thing to do is actually just to tick on data and read the comments that are made. Normally, if there's a problem, it will be in red and it will highlight, but sometimes you just have to read through these comments here, and sometimes it will say I'm not testing because I haven't got enough data, because you might specify the 1st of May, but it only has data for, let's say, from July. So that's a very common problem with testing, is that people don't have enough data and they try and test and they think the EA is problematic, but it's basically just go to the journal, read what the problem is. All right, now let's have a look at the different ways of testing. You've got open prices, and you've then got tick data. Now let's just go through the differences between the open prices. So I'm going to let's just increase the size of the candles. All right, there's a nice candle there. Let's take that candle. So the price movement on this candle there was the close of the previous, so it opened on the same level. There's the open. It looks like what happened here is that the price went up, went down, went up, and closed there, and then opened, and that's why it opened on the over there on the next candle. That's what it looks like, and that's the kind of assumption that is created when you're using open. So it's only really looking at the open prices, open prices. Now you can use open prices if you're using an EA that makes close of candle decisions. So if the EA is saying if I've got a moving average here and I will only trade if the moving average crosses the if the price crosses the moving average and closes over or under the moving average, then only will I trade. So if you're using an EA that's doing that, then you have no problem. But if you have an EA that uses a following, stop, or something else that relies on the price reaching a certain level at a certain time, then that thing will not work, because we don't know whether this price went in there, went down there, went up there, went sideways for a while, and then went down, and then, so we don't know in what sequence the price moved, and sometimes the sequence of the price movement is important. So what tick data does, tick data essentially records the changes in price that has happened in this candle. So it will go, oh, I opened over there, then the price went up, then the price went down, so it actually records every single change in the activity in this particular candle. So there is no problem about it let's say going down first and going up and going down and going sideways, it will record all those movements because you are using every price change method, the tick data method. So those are the two methods, and that's why if you are using an EA like the RSI envelope EA, yes, it uses price levels, so you can't trade it, you shouldn't trade it on open prices, although you can. You should be trading it on tick data. So if you're using this kind of EA, tick data is the most accurate data that you can find. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to just quickly run this, and I'll just to keep it nice and quick, I'm going to run this on the 1 hour. I'm going to run it on the open price method, and let's see what results we get. So boom, 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 start. Right, now firstly, notice the speed. It was lightning fast, absolutely lightning. So we got a result minus 2041, but it was absolutely lightning. And then we're going to do it on a tick basis. Same test. Let's see how long that takes. Now you can see it's actually first doing a collection thing, and now it's running. Now you can see the speed at which it's running. And why is it running so slowly? Because it's not taking just the open price of every candle. It's actually taking every single movement in that particular candle. And I'll show you a little bit more data on the two different tests, and we can talk about that. Now the comments come through. It takes too long to backtest and test EAs using tick data, which I agree with. It does take very, very long. And if you can see just one run is taking about two minutes, most probably over 2 minutes just to do the one run. Now, but we will look at the differences between the how many cores and RAM. Normally you can run this on an old-fashioned laptop. You don't need any specific as long as it's a clean laptop. In other words, you've cleaned the history, the memory. You've done you've deleted all the temporary. Right, so it's finished now, and it's come. Interesting enough, it's come up with more or less the same profitability or loss, but this time it's got 99% quality. And the reason for this is I'm not using the broker's data when I'm doing the tick one. I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. But let's have a look. It's used 300. It's tested 3,800 bars, and I'm writing the amount down. And it has tested 12 million ticks. So it's tested 12 million ticks, but it has done it at 99. So the quality is absolutely superb. Now I'm going to just run it again. I should have done this the first time. I'm going to just run it just to remind you how fast that is. Oops. Start. Oh, it was instantaneous. Did you see that? It was literally instantaneous. That's how fast the open price method works. All right, now the amount. Oh, I know why this is the same amount, because the EA is set that way. But let's have a look at the bars. Firstly, it's tested more bars. I don't know why that is, but it has tested more bars. But the ticks, remember there were 12 million ticks. This one's only used 8,000, and it's basically double the amount of bars. That's what normally is the case, because it's the open and the close. So you can see how much less accurate this particular one is, and I've got an idea. I know why. Trading logic run on new bar open, so that's not run on every tick. So this particular EA can be run on a tick basis, or it can be run on an open bar basis. Now I'm going to run it on a tick basis, and we're going to run the tick data again, and let's just see what happens. So just to remind ourselves, it was mine. That's why we were getting the same answer running the open prices and the tick base, because the EA itself gave you an option to say, do you want to run this on a tick, or that's very seldom happens. The EAs, this particular EA is quite an interesting one. I'm going to run this on a tick basis, and we'll see how what the difference is there. So the tick basis is essentially a lot more accurate. The quality of the data is a lot more reliable, but it is highly slow. It's very, very slow. So what is the solution? If we use tick data, it will take us hours and hours to just test 2,000 options. If we use the open price method, we can test millions of options in this space of a few hours. And let's actually, when this is finished, I'll show you that. I think it's very important to look in this webinar. I'm just basically throwing ideas around and making you aware of things. I'm doing it very much on an ad hoc basis, on a not too rehearsed basis, but if you have any questions, just throw them through. That will help me steer that. But I want to show you the differences now. This has taken so long, I've forgotten what we're doing, but let's just see what this does. Right, so now what I've done is I've run this on a tick basis, and can you see the loss is a lot different. It's 4,000 pips worse than the one that I ran on open. So this is the most accurate way of testing an EA. So let's come back to the question, what do? We can't back trade using tick because it's too slow. We can't back trade using open prices because it's not accurate. What do we do? Any suggestions? Oh, I think I've lost a few people here. Any suggestions? How do we solve this problem? Hello? Uh-oh, nobody out there. Okay. All right. This is what I do. Whether it's correct or not, this is what I do. Let's go back to open. Let's go to, let's make it for the whole of this year first. Let's say I'm going to test this EA on the 1 hour. Maybe we'll make it the 15 minutes. And we're going to now test it for virtually a year. So what I do is I use open prices, and I normally test everything at the same time. So I'm just going to randomly tick things. I don't know if that's, I'll just randomly tick things that I'm going to test. All I want to do is create millions of options. That's all I want to do, really. Yeah. And it's not difficult to create millions of options. All right, so we've got enough ticked. So now we're going to run an optimization exercise over a year, and I'm going to actually even tick, yeah, that one's ticked, and we're going to run it. So let's have a look at how long it will take to run this. So I haven't ticked that. Okay, there we are. All right, so now it's telling us that it's going to take 2 hours and 30 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes to run 10,000 options. Now that's not bad, you know. That's and what's happening is we're actually testing. I can't pronounce this amount of millions, but it's a lot. It's half a trillion, I think, or something like that. Options that we're testing. You can see there's a lot of millions there. What the genetic algorithm does, it tests the 10,000 most likely options out of that, and then does that. So it's going to take us to, so that's what I do, is I actually use the genetic algorithm, and I then run it, and I get, let's say, the best, or I don't actually get the best. I look at the optimization graph, and I say which of these these settings look the best, and that's what I actually do, and I take the best setting. And then only once I've got the very best setting, and remember I've then tested millions and millions of options, only right at the end do I then test the final answer. And maybe we could do that. There's an answer. I'm going to test. I'm going to stop the test, and I'm going to take that answer, put it into the input parameters. I'm going to then run it. Remember, it was 2,600 was the number. 2,600. Then I say, all right, this is my best result that I got from testing open prices. Then only do I say, then I test the every tick basis, and I say, okay, and you'll be amazed that sometimes the differences are not that big. And normally, if it's within 80%, I'm happy. If it's not within 80%, I must probably take different numbers here and retry them. But that's what I do. Is so I do my initial testing totally on open prices, and I only do the final testing on using every tick. There's another method you could use, which I'll show you. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay. All right, I'll explain that tick data pretty soon, because I'm using a very special tick data that is non-standard on MT4 platform. And there's a reason why, because I want that 99%. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you a platform that doesn't have this on it, because it automatically loads when I load any of my MT4 platforms. That automatically loads in addition to the MT4 platform. So I can't show you that. We're just waiting for the results of this one. I'm not too worried about what they are in particular, but just want to make sure that it's more or less what I got. It might differ tremendously, might not. All right, so look at that. You see, it didn't differ tremendously. So now I've got a result of testing 560 trillion or so, apparently options. I've now got a result that at 99% accuracy that gives that count. So that's the way that I do it. I test in open, and then I move to tick right at the end, and you can see the differences aren't that great. Okay, so that's the answer to the problem, because if we had to optimize, and I'm going to do this, if we had to, it'll take 30 minutes just to calculate how long it will take to optimize. You'll see I'm now optimizing on an every tick basis, and it can't calculate. It's too much. The calculations are too big. It's taking too long. It'll take 30 minutes to calculate just how long it will take to do the test. So using every tick to optimize EAs is out, but you do it right at the end. But you still need it to do that at the end. You still need the stick data at the end. All right, so I'm going to just stop this because I've proved the point. Yeah. Oh, there we are. So it's saying, here's the comparable figures. It's saying it's going to take 55, I actually thought it would be worse, 55 hours compared to the 2 hours on the open. So it will take a huge amount of time to do this. So it will take 55 hours to do 10,000 tests. So that proves the point that you just can't use every tick to optimize your EAs. All right. So any questions up to now? Have you learned anything new that you didn't know before? That's the most important thing. Because I do these things every day, and I take them. Oh, not so. So Graham, you've not learned anything. Okay, let's move on then. No, which is good. I mean, then it's a confirmation that you're on the right track. Okay. Then the question is 1 minute better than, well, that question can only be asked if you optimize this particular EA using the 15-minute and then you're optimizing using the 1 minute, then you will get that answer. Nobody can actually tell you what the best time frame is. That's one of the things is when you do test an EA, you test different currencies and different time frames, and that's why you can't afford to do every tick testing. All right, so now let's start talking about the tick data. Now, in general, the data from your broker is, strangely enough, of poor quality in terms of tick data. The way MT4 processes the broker's data makes it of very poor quality, and you don't get this 99% quality using your broker data. So what I do is I download high quality data, and I'll show you where I get this, if I can find the... Now I use a suite called the Tick Data Suite. Tick Data Suite. And they're pretty good. They have a trial of I think 2 weeks, so quite a decent trial. And what happens is, what I like about the Tick Data Suite, it has a tick management program that comes with it. And that's the one thing. And the other thing, it loads onto your MT4 platform. So that, if you don't have that, you won't have those ones. So it actually loads it into your platform, and you can align the tick data. You can actually, I won't go through the settings and everything, but you can align the data with your broker. It will automatically, this program will align it. There are settings. I'm not going to go through them in a lot of detail. The data comes from basically Duca's copy, and you can actually most probably download this data free from that source. But why I use this is that it is a management tool. You can align the data very, very closely with your. You can enable slippage. You can do all kinds of things with this data. I'm not going to go through it in excessive detail, except to show you that. Here's the management part, and for instance, it will allow you to download all the way back to 2003 data. So for the euro, for instance, I've got all the data down to 2003 and up to just a few days ago. I haven't renewed. If I want to update this, I just new data, and I start download, and it will download the additional the missing data that I have, and it's quite quick. So there we are. Now that one's most probably up to date. So here you can see the data I have available for testing. And I think just one trick here is that if you are using this program, make sure that the data gets loaded onto a disk that's not going to clog your computer up. So I, for instance, have a data disk in this computer, and I've got a program disk in this computer, so I load this into my data. If I load it on my program, it would slow the computer computer down considerably. So just load it into a data-based disk, and then you've got incredible amount of data that you can use to test, and it also has all the shares, all the shares and indexes and all those kind of things. It doesn't have cryptocurrencies, but it has all of those. So so this is what I like about this. I can actually control the amount of data that and when you do this, I would just suggest, if you do it for the first time, just download the last year. For starters, just download the last year, because to download from 2003 with a slow computer, you're going to sit there for days and days downloading data. Just download the last year, and that's always normally sufficient to test an EA. So this is what I like about this particular program, the Tick Data program. It has this this manager. So then when you go to when you load your MT4, what it then does is it loads these two items that you won't see, and when you've got that, you can now you can see the last date was that. So let's just see if it will refresh. Oh no, that was a euro that I updated, so it won't refresh. So all you do is you refresh and it will update, and you can then test. And you can see it's just millions of ticks that come through and how many days and all that type of thing. So if you're going to if you're quite serious about back testing and back trading your EAs, which you should be, then this is absolutely essential. Now there are others on the market. I have tried the others. They do cause problems, and one of the problems that the others cause, and I have used them, is exactly with the problem. The thing that I showed you earlier is these history files start conflicting. They with the other programs, they often conflict, and then the trading the testing doesn't work very well. You've got to delete them and reinstall them and do all kinds of things. But with this system, I haven't had a single problem with the test data coming through. So if you you do need to, when you are testing EAs, you do need to do the every tick test at the end. Now there is another, while we're talking about that, there is another way that I often reduce the testing. So let's say I've done this on the open, I've done the test, I've loaded the best the best settings in, and I've got my, I think it was $2,000 worth of profits that have come through. Now I've unticked all the options, hopefully. All right. So one of the things I might do is I would say, well, let's just double check the RSI period, and I might run that test on Tick Data, because it only has, and I might even change that down to 16. So it only has 14 alternatives, started to 1. So there's only about 14 alternatives there. You go there and you actually do the optimization on a tick basis, and that will still take you most probably 10 to 20 minutes, but at least you've done it on the most accurate read only. Let's just, I don't know what's happened there. All right, so it's still taking quite a long time, as you can see, but that's another trick that it's because I've changed the time. Let's just stop that. anyway, I won't. But I think you get oh, it is working. You get the message that if you want to do tick data testing, then don't do everything at the same time. Just do one field. So what the process is: do your open candle, find the best setting, load the best setting in here, and you know how to do that. You just go to the they're all gone now, but you go to that and you select I don't think I'll be able. Set input parameters. You click on the one you want and you set it in, and it will load the input parameters in, and you then can do tick data testing on one line at a time, and that sometimes works pretty well. It's actually doing that test that I said. Now the other thing is when you look at the optimization results, always untick, skip useless results. You want to see the negative results too. All right, so that gives you an idea of how to load the tick data suite in. You basically go to that website, create a trial, a free trial, load the tick data in, and then check, and then start playing with the tick data. Your quality of data will be immensely better, and your quality of your testing will be immensely better using this approach. Yeah, it's $100 to start with, and then it's $10 to keep for the update. You need to decide how important $100 to start with and $10. To me, it's a chicken feed for the kind of work that I do. But if you've got 2 or 3 EAs, or you know what I find, there are so many free EAs out there that you can actually go and find free EAs. I mean, even the moving average. You know, there's a whole lot of free EAs out there that you can now go and optimize, and you'll be surprised at the results that you get. All right, now I think, all right, I'm going to go through the questions that have come out. How does it compare with your old favorite tick story? As I say, tick story gave those technical problems where this one hasn't. Also, because this one has the management, the tick data manager, that thing, it's just well, a lot better. How do you use data when you trade with Telenex? All right, now just remember, I went to great pains to explain to you that the data on the trading charts has got nothing to do with the data that it's actually even in a different directory. It's got nothing to do. So you're not trading Duca's copy data on your charts. Don't get confused. I spent quite a lot of time explaining this. On your chart, you're trading Telenex data. Over here, you're using tick data that has been aligned with your Telenex platform. Big difference. So please make sure that you understand that concept. When you suppliers propose setup files, I assume you have optimized the best. If we can run a test on a machine with inferior data, I guess we get different results. Yes, that's right. Most of the set files and calibration files and all that use this approach, exactly what I've used. Open prices, quality data at the end, all that kind of thing. So if you then load it into your platform and you don't have this data and you're using the broker's data, you're going to get different results, definitely. And they might not be better, they might be worse, who knows, but certainly they're going to be different. The quality is going to be very poor, and reliability is going to be very poor using data, broker data. But look, in the end, if broker data is all you have, go with it. You know, that's the best you've got. I want to reduce testing time in respect of using tick data. I've just shown you the method of doing it. You do open testing, open price testing first, and then tick data at the end. That's the way you reduce it. And you can see how long this one's taking. Oh well, I think I stopped it, but it will take a very long time, even to just do 6 or 7 alternatives. So you can't. I've looked at that. You can't really do that. So just a good computer configuration. Why are you worried about processing? I promise you, you can do all of this on a 10-year-old laptop with 4 megs of RAM, and even a slow processor, you'll still do it. It's not going to the computer you need is not going to. Let's see if I can. Look, I've got 8 processors here. I've got 32 bits RAM. You know, so I've got quite a super duper computer. But my actual testing and running can be done on. I've got some really old laptops that I do those kind of things on. So please, you don't need supercomputers to run these things. I don't even do my testing on this one. I've got another one that's got 16 RAM. But you'll find. Let's have a look. Let's answer that question in a little bit more detail. Applications. All right. Applications. All right, there's Telenex. I just want to see how much it's using. Place. I thought this would give it, but it's not giving it. I wanted to show you the memory that this particular program is using. I don't know why it's not giving me those details, but normally it only uses. Let's just see. Oh, there's terminal. There's terminal. It's using less than my Outlook program. You know, it's using just more than Chrome. It doesn't use much memory, and if I had to do a back test, that's what it would use. About 250 is the most it will go to. So you know, it really is not going to use. It doesn't require huge amounts of RAM or huge amounts of memory but I must say, you have to clean your computer regularly. You know, you have to, like, I've already got 8,000 cache there. Now I need to clean it up so that I get my 32 back, but you need to clean your computer up regularly. Thanks for that question. Don't get worried about computers as long as they're clean. Do you have to calibrate for your own broker? Yeah, no, I did this, and so unfortunately I forget how it works. It actually does it automatically for you, and I'm not sure. In one of these options, it actually will. It just says, must I default to your broker? I'll just see if I can actually find that option. Defaults. Okay, so if you click on there, it will default to your broker. In other words, it will say, oh, this broker's GMT offset is this, and blah blah blah, and it will actually align with your broker. So you don't have to do all the settings; it will automatically do that for you. So that's pretty good. Okay, all right. So I think that's. Let's see. That's most probably all I wanted to show you. I hope, I know there's a few people that haven't gained any bit of information out of this webinar. I'm sorry for that. But maybe I've confirmed your thinking. You also haven't contributed anything in addition to what I've spoken about, so that gives me some confidence that I haven't left anything out. And I think I've gone through most of the questions. Thank you very much for your comments and questions. I'll stick around for another minute if you do have any last minute questions. I don't think there are any coming out, but I hope you've I can sincerely encourage you to get the tick data information. That really does improve the quality of your testing. It makes amazing, and also the way of testing by using open and then switching to tick at the end, very important to do that. And also, I think the big thing that you needed to understand today was that your data is stored in different places. Your chart data is not the same data as what you're testing. The testing data copies your chart data, or it will use the tick data, whichever method you're using. And yeah, hopefully that will improve your back testing and trading. This is the biggest limitation. If you buy your first EA, you don't have proper data to test it on, and you sometimes have to use the broker data. It's not the end of the world if you use the broker data. All right, so from me, Alex Apoy, thank you for your time, and thanks for all those questions that came in, and we've had a good discussion webinar. And if you do have any other questions, please email me, and I'll make a copy of this webinar available in the next 2 hours or so in the forum. Cheerio.